Okay, what if I were to ask you this? How many prospects are on this database that are based in the United States of America? Could you answer the question? And who are they? And what if I wanted to know that information on an ongoing basis? Like every week, I want you to pull that information. Now, you could do a lookup, and then you could narrow the lookup, and we've already talked about how you could do that. But that could get tedious to have to do that every week, and you might wonder whether you did all the steps right. And then what if I added some other things to it, like, for example, I wanted to have the number of prospects that are in the United States that have at least a $5,000 opportunity. And later on we'll talk about opportunities and see how all of that fits in. But the point is, if we are going to do a question on the database that is a more complex question, then we may want to use a query instead of a lookup. Now, the query that we're going to use is found under advanced lookups, but don't let the word advanced scare you, because really they're not that hard to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on lookup in the menu bar, and then come all the way down to advanced, and then we're going to click on advanced query. Now, there are two different types of queries that we can do. There's a contact query and an opportunity query. Later on we're going to talk about opportunities. So we're going to do a contact query. Now, what we want is the prospects that are in the United States. So the first field name that I'm concerned with is what's called ID status. It's on my database, and it shows me whether it's a prospect or whether it's a customer or whether it's an employee, and I could even add additional things to that. So for the field name, if I click on the drop down here, you can see that I could scroll down to get to ID status, or I could simply just type an I, and if ID status wasn't the first I could type I again and get to it that way. As far as the operator is, what am I going to do with that? In other words, ID status, is it that it contains a certain value, or it contains data, or it doesn't contain data, or it ends with, or it's equal to, or not equal to, or starts with? In this case, it's going to be equal to. And again, you can just type an E to fill that in. And then what's the value? Well, the value is prospect. And again, we could click on the drop down and then go down in alphabetical order and find prospect, or we could simply type in prospect. And we're going to click on add that to the list. So that's the first thing, is that the contact ID status is equal to prospect. And then what about it? Where we go from there? Well, and what we want is that the contact's country is equal to the United States. So the field name now is going to be country, and we can scroll down and find country, or we could just type a C, whichever one works better for you, is equal to, and then the value is going to be United States. And we'll just type that in and click on add to list. So what we've done now is created a query that will go in and look for any prospects that are in the United States. Look through the whole database and try to find any prospects in the United States. And notice that the operand here is AND. So if we run this query, we'll find out the answer to our question. I'm going to click on OK, and it says, do you want to save the current query? Well, that's an important question, and yes, I do. I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to save this as U.S. prospects. And click on save. And you'll see later on why we did that. And then it says, and of course you want me to replace the current lookup with this information. And I say, yep, that's what I want to do. Click on OK. And the system goes out and finds that there are, in fact, 19 prospects that are in the United States. Now, how do I know that these are prospects? Because it doesn't really show me right here. It's not really showing me in my contact list view. Do you remember what we did? We're going to right-click anywhere up here in the column categories, and then we're going to click on Customize Columns, and then we're going to bring in ID status as one of our columns. I'm going to add that to it, and so that it doesn't end up at the very end, which is where it is right now, I'm just going to move it up. I'll move it up to right behind Company, and then click on OK, and you'll see, in fact, that they're all prospects. So, as you can see, the query made it simpler for me to do this. Or did it really? In other words, just doing it one time, did that make it simpler? Well, maybe not. But remember, I said we were going to do it over and over again. So in our next section, we'll take a look at how easy it is to use a query that we've already created. That's next.